in an individual society like in America, the starting point is we need to start with individual freedom. Okay. And then whenever you want to infringe on individual freedom, the government and our collective society has to make an argument why. It's kind of like you're innocent until proven guilty. Your individual rights are protected until proven that they need to violate them for some reason. I think that's actually a really good framework. Where in a collectivist society, it's the opposite. It's the starting point is the group's rights come first, and then maybe they'll make some exceptions for some individual rights after that.
I want to talk about individualism and collectivism again.
Oh, nice. We can restart that conversation.
Yeah, I want to
Nice.
I've thought more about it, and I think I'm amending my position.
Oh, that's good. Okay.
I think the super chatter convinced me that there are other behaviors
Mhm.
that could be defined as collectivist
What
that
was the
have
super chat? Because I don't remember.
this super chat was something that had like a eugenics vibe to it. It was like, what if the state mandated you had to get married and have kids with a certain person?
Oh, would it be collectivist? Yeah, if the state
Would that be
determines
collectivist?
right
Yes.
who you can have children with, right? Yeah.
So look, I was drawing the line at death. Like if you're in an organization where you literally are obligated to die for that organization, I think you can classify that organization as collectivist because your personal needs are subservient to the organizational needs. And that's just a clear example, right? If you're going to die for the group, if you're in a military unit,
Mhm.
that's a collectivist. But then all of a sudden, this super chat said, well, what if the state was doing this eugenics stuff? It was like picking who you had to marry and
Mhm.
have kids with. Those were the impositions placed on you by the collective.
Right.
And I was thinking, well, that's not death, but it's a fate as bad as death, isn't it?
Right. I
Like
mean, it's definitely hitting some intuition where you're like, that's not individualism.
you don't even have your own individual you don't control your reproductive destiny? What?
Mhm. Right.
So, but I, I don't think, and this is, I don't think the spectrum thing works because it's all a matter of where you draw that line. And we had kind of conceptualized having a basket of rights that were taken away as you move down the spectrum. But I
Mhm.
do think it's more like a binary. I think there are certain rights that as soon as those rights become subservient to the collective and taken away from the individual, it's like you tip into collectivism. It's like a binary.
Okay,
But it's
so
it's a matter of distinguishing what those rights are.
so let's be clear. So you have decided that you agree that you're changing your definition to encompass more categories than just like would you die for the group,
Yes.
right? Okay, so that's changed. So do you have a new definition, or are you still working on it, or have you adopted my definition?
Well, you have the spectrum thing going, which I just don't
Yep.
think is accurate.
Well, I know,
Yeah.
but we can talk about the spectrum thing. Um, okay, so I guess we'll talk about the spectrum thing, which is that so I still conceptualize it like there's a spectrum, collectivism's on one side, individualism on the other side, and there's you pick out where you are somewhere in between there. And you're saying that you think each individual issue exists on an on-off switch of collectivism versus individualism.
I think individualism and collectivism are a binary, and there are certain behaviors, there are certain situations that
Mhm.
the power goes to the individual or goes to the collective, and in certain categories like reproductive rights, um, anything living or dying situation, I think automatically it tips into collectivism.
Well,
I don't
okay, so
think
what's
I
your
don't think
definition of
paying
collectivism?
tax. Well, look, collectivism is when the needs of the group outweigh the needs of the individual,
The
or
needs of
when
the group?
no, wait, when the needs desires of the needs or desires of the group are always
Prioritized.
prioritized over the individual. Yeah. The individual needs and desires are always subservient to the group.
To the
So
groups.
in any situation where the needs of the individual and the needs of the group are in conflict, in collectivism, you're going to go with the group. In individualism, you're going to side with the individual.
So I think I like that definition, but I still think it has to exist on a spectrum because I do think you get into the issue of like taxation is some amount of individual sacrifice for the group, but not always in the binary fashion that you're kind of conceptualizing.
Yeah, but this is why I was thinking I we I think you can still have some level of taxation and have an individualist group.
I agree. That's why I'm saying it exists on a spectrum as opposed to just a binary.
So, yeah, look, so what is the if you have 20% taxation,
Mhm.
are you saying that the society is 20% collectivist?
I mean, I don't know if you would conceptualize it like exactly like that, but is not. So let's instead of using taxation, let's use specifically welfare, right?
Mm-hmm.
Welfare, which is, part of where your tax money goes, is you as an individual paying into a system that you might not actually ever draw from, they might not ever need yourself, for the benefit of the collective, of the people that will draw from it, right? So
Mm-hmm.
welfare would be a more collectivist program, right?
Yeah, of course.
Right. But we would both agree that in our highly individualistic society of America and other individualist societies, you can have welfare programs. That doesn't mean the society becomes a collectivist society.
Yeah, it's only 20% collectivism.
Right. So that's why I'm saying that it exists, countries and governments exist on a spectrum between individualism and collectivism.
Collectivism, the practice or principle of giving a group priority over each individual in it.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Your definition, I agree with your definition. It's where the
That's
groups,
dictionary.com's
right,
definition, but
the group's needs are prioritized over the individual's needs.
right.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess the American system is like
It's a
40%
mix.
collectivist.
Well, it's probably more than 3%. I mean,
I
that's
said
why
40%.
oh, okay, right. That's why I said that. The way I was conceptualizing it was I think liberalism's, a good, obviously where the middle point is everything is relative. But I
Mm-hmm.
think putting liberalism in the middle is it makes logical sense to say liberalism is kind of the midpoint between individualism and collectivism. And then obviously there are different liberal countries that exist more on the collectivist side or more on the individualist side.
Here's why I don't like it.
Okay, tell
Because collectivism is cancer. We have to fight.
me.
We have to fight against it. So it's better if we separate it out and we say, look, here are the certain behaviors where you dip into collectivism. Eugenics, conscription, like these various areas. And then you can say, listen, we don't want to involve ourselves in those behaviors because those behaviors are collectivist and collectivism is bad.
But it's collectivism isn't inherently bad.
Okay. Oh, look at
Okay,
this.
that's the problem. Because you said you like welfare, right? Welfare is a good program, a good
I
system.
hate welfare.
Okay.
I mean, I like a
Um,
social safety net, but
I
look,
mean, you're talking about UBI. That's like the super collectivist, right?
no, that's super individualist. You're
No, it's
empowering
not.
it's
How?
super capitalism. You're empowering the individual to do whatever they want.
Yeah, but people have to understand people have I think people have an incorrect assumption in their mind of what individualism is because of it's very often framed in the like liberal versus communist conception. Individual just means that the state protects your rights as an individual to basically do whatever you want to do. That like your rights of an individual are the most important thing. And that's why you get into the weird scenario that I put forward, where it's like, you have a guy who wants to buy a billboard across from school to put porn on it.
Why do you stop bringing that up?
No, I bring it up because it's like
It's awful.
The Jonathan Haidt eating your pet
No, it's
example.
not.
It
It's
is.
pedophilic though.
That's the
He,
point. I have to bring up something to show you that you instantly know is wrong.
even Jonathan Haidt steered away from the pedophilia
I'm not
examples.
saying it's no, wait, pause. I didn't say that the porn was pedophilic. I'm just saying they just want to put some kind of porn. Okay. It's adult porn, but they want to put it across from a school so kids can see it. Okay.
It's still pedophilic.
Whatever. It doesn't, that's the point, is that I'm trying to pick an example that everyone hears and knows is a wrong action.
Just
Okay.
pick the chicken, okay? We can keep the pedophilia out of it.
God, you're so sensitive. Okay. It's not across the school. It's just in the middle of the city, okay? In the middle of a
Mhm.
city, someone wants to put a billboard that has hardcore pornography on it. All
Okay,
right. Now there's still going to be kids walking around because it's the middle of the fucking city, but it's not directly across the school. Okay.
okay,
So most of us, I would feel confident, most of us would say, yes, you as an individual should not be allowed to buy a billboard and put hardcore pornography on it in the middle of a city, right?
sure.
That is a violation of your individual rights to do that action. That is leaning on the collectivist side of things, saying
Yeah,
that
it's
the group's rights, that the group's feeling that we don't want to look at porn supersedes your individual right and the individual right of the person selling the billboard
right.
to do that behavior.
And by your definition, you'd say, okay, you'd add all this stuff up and you'd say, okay, this society is 30% collectivist and
Right. But
70%
here's where I'm gonna
individualist.
break your fucking brain. Are you ready for this?
Okay, let's hear it.
Voting in democracy is collectivist.
Okay.
Well, so there you go. That's why I'm saying you shouldn't conceptualize collectivism as like the bad thing, because
Well,
it's
you're
not.
making, oh, okay. Well, that's not making my argument. My
No.
my argument is that you shouldn't conceptualize it as 70-30. You should conceptualize as certain behaviors tip you into collectivism.
But they don't, because like I'll
Like
go
the
like
billboard thing.
yeah.
Well, actually the billboard thing doesn't tip you into collectivism. Because I think you can prevent people from putting up billboards with hardcore pornography
Mhm.
in the middle of the city and it still be an individualist city.
How?
Like I don't think
Tell me.
taking that right away from people tips you into collectivism. When you start saying, look, we're going to decide who you can marry and reproduce with, I think yeah, then you've tipped into collectivism.
Give me the argument of how a city will structure a law that says you can't put porn on a billboard in the middle of the city that is individualist.
Oh, well, I'm talking just the society in general as
Well,
a
I'm just saying, just tell me, explain to me, because I don't see how that's true. I don't see how that works.
explain. What do you want me to explain? Go ahead.
How you could create a law or an argument for not allowing people to put pornography on a billboard in a city under an individualist framework.
Because you're impinging on each person's individual rights not to be accosted by pornography.
And when a bunch of people feel like their needs supersede your needs and they get together to voice that, that's the collective of people.
Well, it's
So
it's
it's saying
not
that you're in like, so if you're the guy who wants to put porn on the billboard, you have some individual desire to do this. Okay. A
right.
bunch
And you
of
have
other
more people
people.
that have an individual desire not to see porn in their neighborhood.
Yes. Right. Right. And
Yes.
so those also, let's just use numbers and make it simple. So there's one person that wants to put porn on the billboard. There's 1,000 people that don't, right? And each
Mhm.
1,000 person has an individual opinion that they shouldn't have porn on the billboard.
Right.
And you say, well, wait a minute. Why does just because there's 1,000 individual opinions, why is that greater than one person's individual opinion? Because the 1,000 individual opinions come together and they say we don't want that. So that's the collectivist approach, because the group's feelings on the issue supersede the individual person's feeling on the porn billboard issue.
A collection of individuals is not necessarily a collective, though.
No, but I'm saying that weighing those collection of individuals' rights superseding an individual's
They're
rights
individual
is by
rights.
definition.
They're each individual rights.
No, they're not. Because the reason that I have it on a spectrum, I don't think it is a binary, is because I don't think the issue of individualism versus collectivism is so clean cut as a binary for the exact issue that you've just brought forward, which is that, well, you can conceptualize that a lot of collectivist issues are really individual issues to the individual person if they're on the side of the collective, right?
You're looking at, well, what are we looking at in terms of the needs of the group? How are we
Well, okay, tell me,
conceptualizing the needs of the group?
okay, you agree that welfare is a collectivist thing, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
this,
So,
look, I'm trying to simplify this down to just the bare bones basics.
mhm,
So why are you conceptualizing welfare as collectivist?
because what is going on in the situation is they're saying there's a group of people who
Mm-hmm.
can't provide for themselves. Okay.
Right?
And so
As
we're going to,
individuals or as a group?
well, each person is an individual, right? So you have a bunch of, there exists a bunch of individuals somewhere out there, okay, who cannot provide for themselves. So the government says, hey, you individuals that can provide for yourselves, we're going to extract money from you and give it to these other individuals.
Right. We're gonna
Right.
your freedom is going to be impinged on a little bit
Yes. To provide a
to
material benefit
provide
to
for
this
these
other
other
group.
people. Right.
Right. That's a collective action because it's saying that your individual, like say if you personally, individually
Your
don't
right to keep
want
your money is going to be subservient to the right of the people to take your money for welfare.
exactly, because you could say like I as an individual, what if I say as an individual, I don't want to pay some, poor person's welfare, right? The government says, well, too bad, right? And the government says too bad because that's the law. And that's the law because we voted in people that created that law.
Right.
So governments as a function are collectivist organizations. Democracy is a collectivist action. It's a bunch of people getting together in a group to collectively decide what the law is and should look like, and then uses the monopoly and force to enforce that.
Right.
So
I
that's
mean,
why I'm.
we're still running into my issue
What's your
that,
issue?
well, I just look, I don't think politically it's valuable to conceptualize the social safety net as collectivism.
Well, you could be correct in terms of like a metaphorical truth claim that it's not useful because people conceptualize collectivism as socialism. But I'm
Yeah,
just talking
that's
about like,
exactly
right,
what I'm saying.
okay, that might be, but I'm not in the Jordan Peterson realm. I'm talking in the Sam Harris, what is objectively true. What is objectively true under the conceptualizations and definitions of collectivism that we both seem to be comfortable with is that social programs and democracy itself are forms of collectivism.
Well, it depends. Like I said, it all depends upon where you draw the line. If you draw the line, any infringement on your freedom. So all taxation is collectivism then.
Yes.
I just don't think that's a good way to conceptualize it. Taxation is socialism. I don't
Well,
think
no,
is
collectivism
good
isn't
branding.
socialism. This is why I had it on a spectrum where I
Mm-hmm.
said, okay, you have collectivism on one side of the spectrum, individualism on the other side. Liberal countries are in the middle. If you go all the way to one end of the spectrum, you get socialism, right?
Right,
If you
but
get,
you're still like 50% collectivism,
yes.
50% individualism.
I mean, remember our definition. This is the problem. I understand that people want to conceptualize collectivism and socialism as like synonyms. But that has to be removed from your brain because if it's not, that's what allows bad actors like Richard Wolff to come in and say socialism is when the government does something. Because if collectivism just means socialism, then he's technically correct. that socialism is when the government does things, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so that doesn't make sense. And then also we get into the problem with how you and I have adopted your definition of morality is collectivist. Morality is a set of rules and principles that binds people together in a cooperative group. So morality
Yeah, but that
itself is a collectivist thing.
that moral system though could be individualist.
Yes, but the enforcement mechanism is still always has to be collectivism. That's sort of the rub here. The irony of everything is that even if you have a society that has a lot of individualistic philosophies and individualist protections, which our
Yeah, you
society
break the
does,
rules, you die.
right? But all those rules have to be enforced through a collectivist approach.
I just look, it's so painful to call it
I
collectivism.
know, but that's the way it is. See,
Doesn't
here, look,
have to be.
Sodosh has it correct completely. Or I'm assuming he does. I only read the first sentence. Sodos for $20 says our individual society requires that the collective provide justification for infringing individual rights. A collectivist society requires the individual have freedom from the collective. That's the difference. Wait, let me read that again. Our individual society requires that the collective provide justification for infringing on individual rights.
Agree.
Okay, I agree. That's agree. A collectivist society requires the individual have freedom from the collective. That doesn't make any sense.
That doesn't make any sense.
I think you mistyped there or something. I think what the first part of what your sentence is true. It makes sense.
A collectivist society tells the individual what to do. And if the individual doesn't like it, they can fuck off.
Yeah, I think that's why, and I think I said this the other day. The way that I conceptualize it is the individual society is a society that errs on the side of the individual. And I think what you said, Sodosh, is a good way of saying it. It's the start in an individual society like in America. The starting point is we need to start with individual freedom. Okay. And then whenever you want to infringe on individual freedom, the government and our collective society has to make an argument why. It's kind of like you're innocent until proven guilty. Your individual rights are protected until proven that they need to violate them for some reason. I think that's actually a really good framework. Where in a collectivist society, it's the opposite. It's the starting point is the group's rights come first, and then maybe they'll make some exceptions for some individual rights after that.
Right.
Does that make sense? Are you comfortable with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think whether or not the behavior is voluntarily agreed to is important. Because if you as an individual opt into a collectivist system, I think the overall society is still individualistic. Like obviously inside societies, smaller collectives will form as long as you're free to join or leave those smaller collectives at will. I wouldn't call the society itself collectivist.
That's fine. But like, you don't okay, but yeah, you can have it like America is a society rooted in individualism. Okay.
Yes, very
But
much so.
within American society, there's going to be smaller communities that are rooted in collectivist approaches. For example, you could be part of you could be Amish, right? It's a very collectivist
Yes,
society.
very
You
collectivist.
could be part of some, super socialist group that's very collectivist. You could just be part of a very religious church that your whole family's part of, and there's a very strict cultural enforcement that like you have to follow the whims and wants of the church and your elders versus your own individual feelings. That's you existing in a collectivist, like society, even though you live in a broader individual society of America,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes.
Okay. Sotos for $5 says it was a typo. Collectivist societies require that individuals request freedom from the collective. Yeah. No, yeah. So okay, I anticipated your typo correctly. But yeah,
Look,
no, I think that's
in
a good
most
way of
collectivist
conceptualizing it.
societies, you can request all you want. You're denied. Request denied.
No,
Request
no,
denied.
that's fine. His point is the way to conceptualize it is the starting point. Okay.
Well,
Starting point of, individual societies is you start with individual freedom, and then they work outward from that starting point to make determinations about where to infringe on individual freedom. Where in a collectivist society, they start at the collectivist group rights, and then they maybe work outward from that to infringe on group rights for individual rights. Okay. I
right,
think that's a correct way to, I think it's a good way of kind of thinking about this.
right. Yeah, no, that works.
Um, Wait a minute. Ostracy for $10 says, you guys are using a crappy definition of collectivism that's far too broad. Everything I look at always ties collectivism to socialism. I sent you 2 definitions in the DM Sitch. I don't see any DMs from you, Ostracy.
Yeah, neither do I.
Ostracy. I mean, I see you. Last DM I have from you is from last year. So I don't know. Do you have some new account or something? I don't see whatever you sent me. I don't see it. So, um, but I don't. I don't think you can. I don't think it's correct to just say that collectivism and socialism are synonyms. It's a screenshot I sent with the conservative stuff. I told you last. Where did you send this to me? Just send it again. I don't see whatever you sent me. Unless you
Yeah,
send it to me. Oh, it's this screenshot you sent to me. Oh, no, wait. What? Oh, it's a screenshot you sent to me a month ago. Oh, okay.
right. Yeah. A political or economic theory advocating collective control, especially over production and distribution, a system marked by such control. Yeah, there's multiple definitions of collectivism, obviously.
Um, the screenshot you sent to me is so tiny, like the text, it's like blurry.
Collectivism, a socialistic theory of the collective ownership or control of all the means of production and especially the land by the whole community. Or, yeah, obviously that's, but I just think that definition overlaps with socialism to the point where,
Well, that definition obviously has socialism baked into it.
yeah, exactly.
Right.
It's like a lot of people do see collectivism as a synonym for socialism. Obviously, they're using that definition.
But okay, here's why I don't like that definition, is because that definition allows people to very dishonestly say, we can't do welfare because welfare is socialist.
Yeah, no, this is
Okay.
why I'm trying to narrow it down to the binary.
No, but what I'm saying is they use the binary to say that welfare programs and social programs are socialist.
Yeah, because they say
Yes.
anything that infringes on your individual rights is socialism. That's how they do it. But this is why I'm saying, well, can't we narrow it down to certain behaviors that if they infringe on your individual freedom just a little bit, like taxes, we're not necessarily socialists, we're not necessarily collectivist,
I don't.
we're still
Okay.
individualist.
Got it.
But
Okay. I
but
finally
when we cross the
understand.
line,
What are you gonna say?
what are you gonna say?
I was gonna say I finally understand your argument and why you have this argument.
Yeah, because
Um,
it allows everything to be categorized as collectivism. Even
right.
if it's 50, like you doing the spectrum thing, even if it's 15% collectivism, well, it's still socialism.
No, it's not.
Well, how's it not?
Because everything has, not everything, most things have some elements of morality itself has an element of collectivism in it.
Right.
Culture is a collectivist thing. Everything, humans, human structures exist because groups of people get together and sacrifice elements of their individuality to participate in a group.
Yes. Yeah.
That is how humans operate. So that's why so that's why you can't just say collectivism equals socialism. It's like, well, no, taking that to an extreme level is socialism, where you say, well, we're not going to afford any rights to the individual. All that matters is the group. That's what socialism is, right? But you can't just say anytime your rights as an individual are infringed is socialism, because that's not true, because that's every human grouping that exists. That's morality. That is culture. That is everything. Is you as an individual sacrificing some part of your individuality for the group. The fact that you can't walk around outside naked, okay, is you sacrificing some element of your individuality for the collective.
I feel like people hide in the wiggle room of the definitions. And that's what I'm like, I want to squeeze that wiggle room out of the definition.
Well, no, it's because, right, but I understand that. But, people want to say, oh, no, what I'm saying is, I would imagine, I haven't read what anyone's saying, but I would guess the pushback when I'm saying would be like, no, individualism, they're going to try to relate individualism to like negative rights or something, right? That, something to that effect, which is like, okay, that's fine. You can have all the negative rights in the world, but you still need a collectivist organization to enforce those individual rights.
That's why I think that. Yeah.
That's why I think
positive rights.
Right. That's why I think Soto's framework to me is the best one, because it's like, well, where is this? The starting point is the answer, and then you kind of work out from there. And I understand that you're kind of trying to create a definition, trying to craft a definition to sort of squeeze out that thing. But I don't think you can just, I don't think that works. I don't think we can just like create a definition to fix a problem, right? To fix because like, okay, here's the real thing that's going on here that we have to talk about. And I'm going to take something from our good friend Scott Adams, who says crazy things, but he also says very smart things. Okay. He's like, two sides of the coin. You can flip the Scott Adams coin. Okay. One side says something very smart. One side says something very stupid. All right. Every time Scott Adams says something, the gods flip a coin to determine whether it's very smart or very stupid. This is a very smart thing. He talks about there's this thing called word thinking. Okay. Word thinking is when you hear the word or name of a category, and the word and the association of the word does all the thinking for you, and it makes you stupid.
Open air prison, concentration camp.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. So it's like, or a good example is when we have these arguments about what defines a man or a woman. This is all word thinking. They're trying to use a word or a label to win an argument and ignore the concept that's underlying the word and what the word represents. Because you have to remember, words represent concepts. So you have to talk about the concept, not the word.
Most people will never escape word thinking, though.
I understand that. That's how you know you're not an NPC. If you can escape word thinking, you've freed yourself from the bounds of NPCs.
But we still need to manage the NPCs because there's a lot of them as a society.
Yeah, but they're not in our audience.
Keep them in check.
Right. They're not in our audience.
Yeah, but look, our audience is trying to manage the NPCs too. They want helpful tips to manage those NPCs in their lives.
When we talk about collectivist versus individualist, I understand that there's a lot of NPCs outside our audience that will never be able to understand that conversation that we're having because they're subsumed in word thinking.
Of course.
Right. And that's fine.
Look what I'm trying to do. When you go bowling,
right,
with your 3-year-old and you put those things up that makes sure the ball gets down to the end of the lane. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, the bumpers.
I'm trying to put some bumpers on this fucking definition. Sitch, help me here.
I get it. I get what you're doing. I understand what you're doing. I appreciate what you're doing, but I don't condone what you're doing. Okay.
90% of the people out there, look, we got 10% of the people in our audience.
Yeah.
We're the thinkers. We're the ones that understand what's going on out there.
The Sitch Adam community. Yeah.
Right. We're not word thinkers. Okay. We all have free will around here.
Mm-hmm.
But in our lives, we're surrounded by NPCs.
Yes.
We're surrounded by word thinkers.
Yeah, but you have to understand. So to me, I think
we need the bumpers.
But here's I think, so we have two options. Okay. We can either try to redefine collectivism and individualism to like trick people, I guess, to trick the word thinkers.
Trick people.
Okay. To trick the word thinkers. Yeah.
To help people, Sitch. What are you talking about?
This is like the conversation that like the supervillain has with the hero. Okay. I'm not tricking anyone, Sitch man. I'm just helping them see what is true.
Yes. Look, truth is hard. The world is a difficult place. Truth is hard to discern. People need help.
Listen, listen, Adam Nito. Okay, I, Sitch man, believe in truth. You can never win the people over with a lie. No good things will ever come from a lie.
It's not a lie. Okay.
It's a useful fiction.
Aren't all words at some level a deception? Is water really water? You can't drink the word water, Sitch. You know what I'm getting at.
Yes, but listen here. What's your villain name? I went with Adam Nito. But I
Mine?
feel like
Skull Crusher, obviously.
Okay, listen here, Adam Skull Crusher. Okay. It's true that you can't drink the word water, right? But the word means a concept that has a shared meaning or a shared general map of meaning, which all people have to understand. Because otherwise, when you say, hey, can you hand me the bottle of water? They could hand you a bottle of piss. And you could be drinking piss and not even realize it. And you're like, why did you hand me this bottle of piss? And they're like, that's what you wanted. You said, hand me the water. Is that what you want, Adam? Do you want a society where people are drinking pee instead of water?
But does that definition serve me as an individual?
Oh, there you go. There's the evil plan comes out.
Does it serve me? Does it serve my goals?
I see. So are what you're saying is that like definitions inherently are collectivists. Because
Yes.
groups of people have to agree on what the fuck words mean.
Definitions are socialist. And we need to fix that shit.
We did it. Definitions are socialists.
We need to fix that. We need to fix it.
I have a very individualist approach to definitions. Words mean whatever I want them to mean.
Yeah.
They serve me. There you go. I love it.
Well, look, I think we understand the problem. I think we both understand the problem here. So,
what's the problem?
Look, every time you use your spectrum definition, I'm just going to say, oh, taxation is theft.
No, because the spectrum definition fights back against the taxation.
How?
Stuff. Because it's saying that everything exists on the spectrum. So just because something has some collectivistness in it doesn't mean that it's socialism, doesn't mean that it's theft. That's the word thinking.
Okay.
Or I'll just say, in shorthand, I'll just say that's word thinking.
Well, I think you can
taxation and theft is word thinking.
I think you can conceptualize taxation as individualist anyway.
You can conceptualize anything to be individualist, and you can conceptualize anything to be collectivist, depending on how you frame it.
Yeah.
Which is very often that's what the socialists do, is they try to, and I think this is what you were gleaning at when you were talking about socialism being individualist, is because very often the socialists are trying to make arguments to basically trick people, to confuse them, say, oh, socialism is really about helping, is really individualist because it's all about helping you, the individual, maximize your freedom, right? And when they say freedom, they mean your positive rights. But those positive rights come at the cost of negative rights of everyone else.
Do they?
Yes.
Maybe.
They do. But so the idea is why I, as an enlightened centrist, never take the approach of just saying flatly, negative rights good, positive rights bad, or positive rights good, negative rights bad. It's like, no, there's always this given push and pull, there's always this push and pull. There's always this golden mean kind of somewhere moderate ground that you're kind of trying to look for, where you realize you have to balance all these things out. Because again, at the end of the day, society and culture and morality itself is you, the individual, sacrificing elements of your individualism to participate in the group.
Yeah.
So
we have to find, you die. You're in the boat. We're all in this
Yes.
boat together.
Right. If you want to be the hyper individual, you go live in a forest somewhere off the grid and do whatever the fuck you want all day. You buy some land and you live on that land and you just never interact with anyone. And you could be the most individualist individual of all time, right? But if you
Mhm.
live and partake in part of society and culture and morality, these are all group things. These are all collectivist things.
Let's read some super chats.
Okay.
I think they're largely in favor of me. So I think.
There you go. Fondue for $20 says, I think this talk taught me something. The reason we start with individuals is to ground the collective perspective on the needs of the people living in it. Starting from the
True.
collective is pretty much going on your imagination. Yeah,
Yep.
that's a very good point. That's
Well,
a very good
look,
point.
I do, and this is what I was trying to get at when we were talking about how we conceptualize these two groups. Because when people do talk about making changes, and conservatives do this a lot, they are conceptualizing the collective. And they're saying, look, if we make this change to society, society's going to fall apart, right?
Right.
Society's going to cease to function. And so that is they're saying the needs of the society is that it has to be functional and sustain over time. That's
Right.
what's implied in what they're arguing. So,
Yeah.
but you are kind of what it takes to make a functional society over time is kind of let your imagination roam, right? I
Well,
mean,
what I would add to the what Fondue said is that the reason I think that we should, and I think this is why liberalism succeeds, why the starting point should be on the individual, and then you work out from there, is because since we operate under democracy, democracy makes it very easy for the collective to subjugate the individual.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so, therefore, since that's the case, since it's very easy for the collective to basically, 60% of the population, in theory, votes 40% of the population to be enslaved, since that's a weakness inherent within voting and democracy, that's why, to counterbalance that, that's why you start with individual freedom and then work out from that to
Well,
counterbalance that effect.
the Bill of Rights kind of conceptualizes it my way in that there's a tipping point with certain behaviors. Like if you limit the individual's speech, you've crossed the tipping point.
Right.
If you forbid the individual to carry firearms, you've crossed the tipping point, right?
Right. Yeah.
So I think that's an important thing. But like even your crazy example with the hardcore pornographic billboard in the middle of town, okay? Let's say that happens, right? Someone puts
Hmm.
up a billboard with hardcore pornography on it.
Right.
Is society going to fall apart? Or I don't know.
No, but people are gonna be really fucking pissed about it.
Yeah, but maybe they get over it. Maybe they just acclimate to it. Oh,
Well,
yeah,
no, actually,
that's
because here's the argument you say. Like having the individual billboard will not lead to society falling apart, but having a society that permits the billboard could lead to society falling apart.
maybe.
Because you'd say, like, the society that permits hardcore pornography on a billboard in a city, what else does that society permit? Right.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I don't know. You're going kind of on the broken windows theory, right?
well, no, it's kind of like maybe it's kind of like a broken window slash slippery slope. Like,
Well, if
you
your
know,
intuition is like it's going to make rape go through the roof or whatever,
well,
right?
no, I'm
But
not
you put the
necessarily that.
hardcore billboard up and then all of a sudden
I'm not
sexual assault
saying,
goes down. You're like, oh man, maybe we should have put these billboard up
no, no, no,
sooner.
no. I'm not saying that the hardcore pornography billboard makes rape go up. I'm just saying
Hmm.
the the society that either can't stop that action from taking place if everyone hates it or doesn't care is going to have other problems with it.
You
That
think?
says something about the society. Yes, right. And so
I
I
mean,
think,
yeah, you're going off your gut intuition though.
of course I am. But the whole
Yeah,
conversation is what's going on.
of course. Look,
Right.
all of these rules. I mean, I have the same kind of gut intuition as you. Like, yeah, don't put the billboard up. It's going to make people uncomfortable. It's going to make people unhappy. And why do it? Right.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of times our moral intuitions are completely wrong and incorrect.
Yes,
Yeah,
of course. But
yeah,
that's kind of the danger of our moral intuitions is that yes, it is our gut, it is our intuition. That's the whole point. They lead us astray. They
yes.
can lead us astray, right?
Yeah, at one
Um,
time the moral intuition was we can't free all the slaves because who's going to do all the work and society will fall apart. And then we realized, oh, society's far more productive when people work on their own accord.
right. Like, yeah, of course, there's a theoretical society that could have different conceptions of like sex,
Hmm.
where you could put hardcore pornography on a billboard and it would be fine, right? But I'm looking at from our society standpoint, from our cultural standpoint, and people feel about sex. If you could put hardcore porn on a billboard in our country, and no
Hmm.
one could stop it, okay? Even though everyone hates it, if everyone hates something but no one can stop it, I don't think that's a. I think there's something there. There's something happening there that I think is going to lead to tension and problems down the road.
What about attractive women in superhero movies?
Mm-hmm.
Is society going to fall apart if we have attractive women in
No,
superhero movies?
but most
Why
people
is
like.
everyone putting a stop to it then?
Well, that's the problem. But that's the opposite. Most people want attractive women in superhero movies, and yet there's a small vocal minority of woke a-holes who want to put a stop to it, and they're listened to because they get hired to write all these crappy movies.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Fondue. Hi, you just listened to a clip from the Sitch and Adams show. If you like what you heard, you can listen to our live show right here on this channel on Sunday, starting at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. And if you want, you can super chat us. We read $20 and up super chats on the show and then do a follow-up stream on the following Tuesday where we read the rest of the unread super chats and interact with fans of the show. Subscribe to this channel right here to listen to the live show or to listen to more of our awesome clips.